Here's Frank Corrado, former Vancouver Canuck and TSN hockey analyst.
Frank, how annoying are your friends at this time of year phoning you and texting you about fantasy and pool hints? Are they annoying?
I don't know. Luckily for me, I feel like I don't have a lot of people playing fantasy that are bugging me about stuff. So I feel like I'm okay with that.
His friends play in the league, man. Okay, they don't play fantasy hockey. They play real hockey. They play for keeps. Yes. They play for that NHL money.
I feel like people that are fantasy hockey, like they don't care about not that they don't care about analysis. It's like fantasy stuff is different than like breaking down the games in a weird way. I don't know. They feel kind of separate.
Yep.
And counting stats too.
Anybody can read a stats page.
Rather than process. Yes.
Yeah.
We're all about process here, though, with you, Frankie.
If I get first pick, I'm taking McDavid.
It's a good choice.
Doesn't take a lot.
It's a good choice.
Do you remember when we were kids, Frank? You're probably too young for this. When Blake and I were kids, if you did fantasy hockey, either Gretzky was completely removed from the pool,
right,
or you got Gretzky goals or Gretzky assists. You had to split the Wayne Gretzky categories. Otherwise, whoever got first pick would take Gretzky and just win the pool.
That's pretty wild.
I want to say Mario was like that, too, that some pools...
He was injured enough that it was a little less
Mario.
clear.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Frank, you're our best X's and O's guys, X's and O's guests. And so we wanted to drill down on what Adam Foote was saying last week about team identity with you. For those who missed it, and it is our Redwoods Golf Course poll question today, do you think the Canucks will have a team identity this season? Foote was asked about how he wants to play, what the team's identity is, and he said adaptability. He said, we're going to play different against the big heavy teams than we are against the teams with great speed. We're going to play a little differently against the teams that have terrific offensive acumen versus the teams that may be a little bit more low scoring. So my first question to you is, can adaptability be a team identity?
I don't think so. I kind of think your team is built a certain way, and when it's built a certain way, it should act a certain way. And the teams that have always been known as the best at any given time, you could pinpoint what it was that made them a good team. Like the Vancouver Canucks, when they were, in 2011 on the doorstep of winning a Stanley Cup, we all knew what the identity of that team was. They were fast, they were skilled, they moved the puck up the ice incredibly well. Like that was really nice hockey to watch. The LA Kings that won 2 Stanley Cups, that was junkyard hockey. Like that was just mean, big, physical hockey. The Chicago Blackhawks, like I could go on forever about every, era of teams that had success, and we can pinpoint like what their team identity is. We know right now what the Florida Panthers are, right? Like that's a great blend of like depth and physicality and going to get you into every single scrum. There's like, I don't know, there's like a handful of things that really make up that team's identity. Do all good teams need to be adaptable? For sure. But that's not your MO. Your MO is not that you're just, adaptable to whatever the situation is, because what's your default? What are you kind of making teams have to look out for? So that's where something like that, I'm like, okay, yeah, you need to be able to make adjustments for sure. You don't want to be so staunch in what you believe you're doing, that you kind of, you don't make the right decisions, but you still have to have your identity, your MO. What are you as a team?
Every coach wants to be adaptable. Every coach wants to believe that they're not so dogmatic that they are unwilling to be able to adjust to what another
Blake,
team
we
is
saw
doing.
we saw it last year. Rick Tocchet's system, with not a lot of leeway outside of the system, did not work for a number of players.
Right.
So I guess, Frank, then the question is, that was just the wrong system. Or the head coach needs to understand that sometimes the identity he wants to forge is not in the DNA of the particular players. And find a new identity?
Okay, here's where I think being adaptable helps you, right? If a team is throwing a look off, some face-off play, or they're doing something on their breakouts that maybe you didn't account for. You'll make a change within the game, but that doesn't change your identity as
the
a
micro
group.
versus the macro, right?
Yeah, those are just like small little changes that you have to be able to be willing to roll with the punches. But I've seen it where, certain coaches will say, I'm not changing my game for that guy. They're going to change for me because I believe what I'm doing is right. And that's wrong either. So that's wrong as well. So it's, at the end of the day, you always have to come back to what you are as a team. All these teams have, sayings or quotes or words up in the dressing room. It's not just decorative stuff. It's stuff that, like, when you need a little reminder of what your team is supposed to be all about, it's like, oh yeah, that's it. We're supposed to be fast, or we're supposed to be really physical, or just we compete our asses off every single night. And maybe those are just non-negotiables, but at the end of the day, it's like you have to have you just have to have the bones of what you are before you can say you're adaptable. Like that, for me, that's not a team identity, being adaptable.
Gotcha.
My example's
horses.
My example's been the 2011 Stanley Cup final. Like, two teams that played each of their own games, and the best team won. The best, the Canucks played their brand. The Bruins played their brand, and the Bruins brand won.
The best team did not win. The best strength team won with
the best game plan won. The best game plan
from
won.
the guys in stripes.
Not skilled.
Yeah.
Best game plan won.
And then after that, why did Vancouver make philosophical changes to how they couldn't just roll out the same type of personnel and say all of a sudden we're just adapting. Well, no, you're not adapting because you don't have the players that play the big truculent style of game. So you have to go and get those types of guys if you want to do it. So if you're Vancouver, you have to ask yourself, we're looking up and down this roster, what are these guys more suited to playing like? And if I look at Vancouver's roster, I think there's a number of guys that move the puck really well on the back end. I think you have some speed on the wing. You're probably not as deep down the middle as you'd like, but if Pettersson and Chytil are healthy, like, they're both skilled players. I think you have really good distribution down the middle of the ice. So if I'm trying to pin down what the Canucks are going to be, they can be hardworking, they can be competitive, but I don't see them being like a heavy Florida Panthers type team. But, are they the most skilled team in the league? No, but there's
not that either.
Skilled players there for sure.
But, okay, so first of all, I think that's interesting what you said about Chytil as a distributor. Let me get back to that. But as somebody who liked what he heard from Foote and understood what he was trying to say, and look, you've forgotten more about hockey than I'll ever know, Frank, but I do believe the essence of coaching is not just, here's my system, here's how we run it, this is what we're going to do and live and die by it. I do believe you have to account for the opponent, exploit weaknesses, cover up their strengths. But like you talk about hardworking. Well, fuck, it's the same as what you're throwing back at me as a criticism. Every team wants to be hardworking.
Yeah.
Like, hardworking isn't an identity.
No,
that's not an identity.
No. Like, chip and chase is a identity.
Yeah.
Carry the puck over the blue, like, puck possession is an identity.
Embrace the hard
neutral zone trap, much as we may hate it, is an identity. Kings 1-3-1, much as we hate it, is an identity.
But isn't all that an admission? We're just not good enough. We're adaptable? We work hard. Isn't that coach speak for we're not very good? So we're gonna have to,
or we're gonna try and win every kind of way.
You know what it kind of says to me? It's like, we're not going to pick a lane as far as what we truly are yet. There's going to be nights where we want to carry it in. There's going to be nights where we want to chip it in, and we'll decide based on who we're playing. And the other thing, like, Matt, you brought up neutral zone trap as just, let's use that in as example. There's three different formations that teams will use. There's like your 1-2-2, 1-3-1 that LA played forever. A lot of teams like Tampa Bay, they've gone to like a 1-1-3. But you basically have what you are. Like, you don't change it based on who you're playing. You don't see the LA Kings come to town and all of a sudden decide, you know what, we're a 1-2-2 team all year, but when this team comes in, we're going to change it and go 1-3-1. You don't do it. You don't practice it. Like, you're just so that's where I think that's where I think you can't get caught up in saying, well, we're going to adapt to whoever we're playing. Like you kind of just you do have to
I
a
hear
little
you.
bit live and die by what you are. Of course, you're adapting the nuances for sure, but I don't know. Then you lose. You always have to have your identity that you come back to when times are bad, when things are when things aren't going well. So, what is that thing that you come back to if you're just adaptable?
Yeah. And you bring up a great point, Frank, that I intended to ask you about. How difficult is it going to be to install a identity of we're going to play different ways against different opponents? Like just take the opening week, for example. Thursday home to Calgary. You're not really concerned about their offensive firepower, right? Like they're not a high-scoring team.
Industrious team. But,
Right.
Yeah.
And then Saturday night in Edmonton, where you're terrified of their offensive firepower. So how difficult, particularly early in the season, do you think it's going to be for Foote and his staff to install this sort of system or this sort of identity to play starkly different on a night-to-night basis?
Right. So that's the thing. That's why, like, and I'm going to use like defensive hockey mostly to be like the example for all of this, because offensively, it's not that you
have
can't
to have
coach
it.
it.
Yeah.
The chips are going to fall where they fall sometimes offensively. You got the skill, you don't got the skill. You got the guys that can make the plays, or you don't have the guys that can make the plays. But defensively, like, you need to hammer down all your switch offs in the defensive zone, all your like where are you going to be when the puck goes here, when the puck goes there, when it goes D to D. You have to have this also. It just becomes instinctual. And if you're constantly changing it because you played Calgary and then you're playing Edmonton, well, then it doesn't become instinctual. It just becomes a thought process, and you're thinking about it. And when you think, you're a little bit slow and it doesn't happen natural. And so that's why, like, knowing that you're going to be a layer team in the defensive zone, and this is what we're doing because we think it's right, and we know where the vulnerability is. Every system has its vulnerabilities. Man on man does, the hybrid does, the box and one does. But can we learn this the best we possibly can, so that whatever vulnerabilities there are, they're mitigated because we're so dialed in and so detailed on what we do. And so that's why I feel like you have to kind of pick a lane. And if we get 2 months into the season, like this kind of happened, a team I follow a lot here in Montreal, this kind of happened to them, right? It happened to Edmonton a couple years ago, where Edmonton saw how Vegas was playing with the box and one, where it's like a 5-man dice and the centerman's got to go back and forth, and it didn't work. They didn't have the horses to do it, so they had to change what they were doing. Montreal last year wanted to do like the hybrid, man on man. It didn't work for them, so they had to adjust. So as time goes on, you'll see if it works. But if you're just changing it, based on who you're playing, you actually don't even know if it's going to work.
What we can't account for is the nuance in Foote's mind. Like, Adam Foote might be thinking, I'm super malleable, but it might be micro adjustments that he thinks is sort of adaptability in his own brain, but is really, it's not. So like we're gonna have to see it over 20 games and see exactly what he means by that, I think, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's a very interesting thing, because I would fault coaches for not being willing to be nimble and make adjustments. But the adjustments come when you've kind of hammered down what you are already, right? And so that'll be, I think you have to use all the time you possibly can here throughout the preseason, throughout the rest of the practices, to really instill what you're going to be about. Every other team's doing it. They use narrative words, they use buzzwords, but they kind of stick for guys. Those words, they mean something for hockey players. It's like a language that you understand. So I think you have to hammer down those details and those words and those narratives with your guys as much as you can.
You think Chytil can be a distributor, huh?
I think he's got good hands, and he's got good vision, and and he makes nice plays with the puck. From what I've seen of Filip Chytil's game, especially when he's been healthy and been at his best, like there's a passing element there that I think sometimes can catch people by surprise. I do believe there's a good distribution aspect to his game. I take it you see him more of a shooter, but I think
I haven't. So first of all, I would not argue with you on the X's and O's of a player that I've seen, a handful of games from. He stood out as a Vancouver Canuck last year because he played with pace and he liked to carry the puck in the zone. And he even talked this week about how after his first few games, like Talk had basically neutered him a little in terms of carrying the puck into the offensive zone. I just see a guy who hasn't put up particularly big totals when you're talking about assists and passing the puck, nor has he been used in a role with the New York Rangers where that was pronounced. I mean, his career year is 22, 23 for 45, right? Like he's, he looks more like that mid-rotation starter, right? He's 14 and 14, So, but you know way more than I do on the X's and O's. And if you say that, then that's something I'm looking for.
Listen, I think first and foremost, it's about him being healthy. We can all agree with that. Yeah. With him in New York, he was not playing the role that he's going to play with Vancouver. Like he was always kind of, fighting for ice time, a little bit lower in the lineup. There were guys ahead of him on the totem pole. So like, that's not going to help his numbers. But I just think from like if you take the numbers away and you watch him kind of carry the puck and watch how he goes about his business. I mean, I wouldn't say he's like a sharpshooter, but I definitely would say like there's a playmaking element to his game for sure.
And the fact is, Frank,
more passer than shooter. I think a little bit for sure. And that we'll see how that translates to this year with Vancouver.
Well, and the thing is, Frank, if he is going to be a bona fide second-line centerman in the National Hockey League, then one of those two things has to be enhanced, right? Then either you are going to have to score more goals and be that shoot-first center, or you are going to have to be
identity for Filip Chytil,
more of a puck distributor on a line.
Individual level, man. Like guys go through it. Like guys struggle. The best players in the world struggle. You've heard Connor McDavid say, "I got no confidence right now." You're like, that guy, like he's still putting up points every single night, but he's got no confidence. And you always come back to it, like, okay, what's my identity?
They've had Lekramaki on that second line with Chytil and Kane, although I think that's just trying to give him a chance, saying, hey, we'd really like you at some point this season to be a top 6 scoring winger. So I'm not sure that position is quite as set in stone, Frank, but Kane seems to be a constant there. Do you like the duo of Chytil and Evander Kane?
Well, the thing I like about it is like Kane is so imposing and come up with pucks and can use his body quite well. I think it's nice to have that with Filip Chytil. Not in the old school like enforcer type way where he's going to like clear a lot of room for the guy, but just to be able to get pucks to Chytil to ultimately see what he can do with it, like to have it on his stick more, because when he does have it on his stick, like he's the guy who's making the plays. Like Kane's going to be direct. He's going to bring it to the net. It's going to be very straight line type stuff, and that's good. And you need that. But having someone who I think anyways can be a pretty slick passer, getting the puck to a guy who can play inside the dots and around the net, it should shape up to be a good combination. Like everything at this point in training camp, they all sound good in theory. You have to see, like, not all these lines that the coaches want to work will work right away. But in theory, like for me, it does make sense having the two guys paired together.
To me, the most important guy on that line is going to be Connor Garland, which is where I think Connor Garland should be, because we don't yet know what Chytil will look like. And Kane plays in a straight line, as you said, Frank. I think it's a moderate squiggle for Chytil, and it's a full-on squiggle whirling dervish.
A whirling dervish for
Connor Garland. Yeah, and I like the balance
No
there.
straight lines. No straight lines.
Yeah. No, and listen, if you're rolling out a line with Evander Kane and Connor Garland, like, and I'm hopping over the boards and I got to play against that line, I think that's no fun for different reasons, right? For different reasons. One guy's going to overpower you. One guy's really going to lean on you. And the other guy's just so annoying in every aspect. Like, he gets under you. He wins battles. He like hits you in weird spots. He gets body positioning so many times, especially in front of the net. Like, those are two guys that are like just not fun to have to play against for the duration of a game. And listen, Chytil's not that type of guy, but all of a sudden you put him with two guys that are really like making it a point to be on the inside and to get to the front of the net. There should be something there. Like, I think it's okay to be like cautiously optimistic about what that line could bring to the table.
Lastly, very quickly, your paisan Mancini. Did you see him on Sunday? And did you see what Foote said about him? How got to calm him down a little bit in the neutral zone, but other than that, big, powerful man and looked the part.
Yeah. He had the happy feet going in the neutral zone. Is that what was going on?
Yeah.
I like that. I got an email from someone actually who watches the show.
Oh,
her name is Cindy. She goes, I tuned into the Matthew and Blake show here in Vancouver. They mentioned my name once about Filip Chytil, how he took the time and to talk to a fan.
That's
that fan
right.
Was me. I just want to know how he's doing in Winnipeg. She said.
She asked me that today. She's a huge Di Giuseppe fan and very loyal audience member. Yeah, we see her at the Nat. She works there. Well, we'll watch Mancini's progress here in Vancouver. Frank, you watch Di Giuseppe's progress for Cindy in Winnipeg. Okay, your buddy, your childhood friend from way back. And we'll catch up next Wednesday, my dude.
Okay,
Thank you.
Boys. Have a good one.